This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Hello and welcome to episode 91 of the 1001 Movies podcast, based on the book 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die. This week I'll be talking about 1964's Red Desert by Italian filmmaker Michelangelo Antonioni. Way back in episode 14, I extolled on the virtues of Antonioni's L'Avventure, the first film in a trilogy that was followed by La Notte and L'Eclipse. These two films are subjects for future episodes and featured Antonioni's lover, actress Monica Vitti. After directing a portion of an anthology film in 1962, Antonioni released his first color film in 1964, Red Desert. The film features Monica Vitti once again as Giuliana, the wife of an Italian industrialist. Giuliana has a checkered past. She was in a horrible car accident some years earlier, which involved her being hospitalized, which is why she's anxious, depressed, and seemingly out of sorts. Giuliana meets and falls in love with her husband's colleague Corrado, played by English actor Richard Harris, dubbed over in Italian. But even their affair doesn't seem to sate her irritability. All of this is set against the backdrop of a seaside industrial town in Italy. Machinery can always be seen churning out smoke, there's the incessant noise of the factories, and the water has been completely polluted. Antonioni's first challenge in making this film, which I'm sure he mirthfully accepted, was working with color. Not only did this mean some technical challenges not present in his earlier films, but he knew the psychology of color. In an early scene, Giuliana looks upon a bare plain of industrial waste, and it's nothing but blackness, like the surface of a dead planet. Antonioni literally had the rocks and the landscape painted black to achieve the effect. He played with splashing color here and there, including red paint and green pipes in the factories, and in a dream sequence in which Giuliana tells her son a story, we see a beach with pink sand and rock formations that look like nude sunbathers. Now, although Red Desert was made sometime after Antonioni's trilogy from the early 1960s, some critics considered it the fourth entry in a series, and actually links his older neo-realist work with what he would do next in America, beginning with 1966's Blow Up, which, as I often say, is the subject of a future episode. Very little has been documented about the actual production of Red Desert, and of course it's been praised critically, winning the Golden Lion at 1964's Venice Film Festival. By this time, Antonioni's films had become critic-proof, and he had come a long way from when L'Avventure was booed at the Cannes Film Festival. The merits of Red Desert lie not really in its production or history, however, but in its content, which leads me to the question, what did I think of Red Desert? I tried, loyal listeners. I really tried. After unexpectedly enjoying L'Avventure, I looked forward to seeing this, but it took all my willpower to watch the entire movie and keep my eyes open. Even a second viewing didn't sway me. Primarily, there is no story here. In just under 2 hours, we learn that Giuliana suffers from a myriad of mental disorders. She's a hypochondriac, she loves her son, she loves her husband, although it seems unrequited, and she spends much of the time wandering about and talking with Richard Harris's Corrado before sleeping with him, still finding herself unsatisfied, and perhaps forced to conform with the industrial nightmare her husband has planted them in. Simply put, if it's a story you're looking for, don't look at Red Desert. The script has a number of equivocal lines and monologues that might mean something, but which I became rather tired of thinking about. Where Red Desert succeeded for me was the cinematography. Somehow, Antonioni transforms the prehistoric industrial landscape into a thing of beauty, horror, and mystery. Something I don't think I've seen since David Lynch's Eraserhead. Everyone in the film except Giuliana seems to blend into the landscape, and no doubt this is responsible for some of Giuliana's neuroses. Dressed in brightly colored clothing, mostly notable in a bright red coat in the film's opening moments, she often sticks out like a sore thumb. Other characters try to help her by inviting her to social events, primarily an informal cocktail party and a seaside shanty, during which the conversation turns uncomfortably adult and wandering hands waver in the background on women's thighs and up their skirts. This is all interrupted almost violently when a ship with a sick passenger pulls aside the shack, and Giuliana rushes outside, gets in her car, and almost drives into the ocean. Whatever delights this new life of hers has to offer, she's not having any of it. There are also some fun little images, like a large handmade robot incessantly moving back and forth in Giuliana's son's room. As Antonioni's camera lingers on it, it looks almost menacing until Giuliana shuts it off. The robot, of course, is a product of industry and reflects Giuliana's disdain for it. It's clear what Giuliana truly yearns for when she tells the tale of the girl on the beach to her son. The location is beautiful, and there's something in there about an unmanned ship that approaches the beach and turns away, which, like most of the film's narrative, went completely over my dumb American head. When Giuliana is asked what it is she's afraid of, she says, streets, factories, colors, people, everything. This may reflect the attitude of some of Italy in the 1960s, 20 years after World War II changed the country. The country rebuilt itself from under the previous fascist regime with new industries and bigger cities, resulting in the industrial landscape we see in the film. Antonioni's opinion of this change, however, doesn't seem to be pessimistic. Rather, we are seeing this through the eyes of Giuliana, who simply doesn't have the mental capabilities to keep up with the change and the pollution, even though she's seeing it all from arm's length. Watching the film with this in mind, I think the viewer potentially would appreciate it more, and perhaps a third viewing would change what I think about it, but I have more than 900 movies to watch before I die. I don't remember what Antonioni did with L'Avventura that seems to be lacking in Red Desert. Is it the linear storytelling, minimalist as it was? Is it the black and white camera work of the old Italian architecture and Antonioni's playful experimentation with perspective and framing? Perhaps I need to go back and revisit both films, but this time I'm anxious to get on with the next film, no doubt obvious from the brevity of this episode. So that's all I have to say about Red Desert. Tune in next week when I talk about 1936's Make Way for Tomorrow, directed by Leo McCarey. In the meantime, feel free to email me any questions or comments at 1001moviespodcast@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter at 1001moviespc. And if you've been enjoying the show, please leave some positive feedback with your podcast provider. Until next time, happy viewing.
And the Oscar goes to...
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 Hi, my name is Sean, and I am the co-host of the Best Picture podcast. Each season, my co-host Eric and I randomly select a year and talk about the Best Picture nominees of that year, with each episode dedicated to a different movie. Did the Best Picture really win? Were there any overlooked movies? Was anything nominated that probably shouldn't have been? Listen to us and find out. Look for us wherever you can get fine podcasts.